My name is Robin Stoltman. I am a certified hypnotherapist. I've got over 20 certifications. The easiest way to explain it is that I'm a master of the behaviors and communication. I've put a lot of hours, a lot of education into what it is that I do. And I also have real life experience. So it's not just I can talk about it. I've actually got the experience behind everything that I do. And it does come into play when helping other people out there with similar issues. And then also what I've been doing is I've been expanding my business. So I've got Maxwell Leadership that I also am a executive program leader for coach, speaker, and trainer. And then I also have I've spent the last 11 and a half years of my life pregnant. This November will officially be 12 years. And I am going up for my eighth C-section in a row this September, and I'm looking forward to it. And my oldest child is 9, the youngest is 17 months. So I know how to have a successful business, how to overcome a lot of different traumas, a lot of different issues that are health problems, and heal them all naturally. And that's what I love what I do.
Congratulations on all of that. That's exciting news. How does it
Thank you.
feel?
It feels really good that I'm going in for my eighth one in a row. I'm like, this time I'm giving myself a break because the other ones I was like, okay, they're out. Now get back to work. And this time I'm like, you know what? I need a break. So that's why while I'm building my Instagram, which is Robin Stoltman, and my website is robinstoltman.com. And then also my I'm trying to think. My YouTube is Robin Stoltman, and then my LinkedIn is Healing for the Soul Plus, and then also my TikTok is Robin Stoltman. I went with my name, my first and last name for Robin Stoltman, Robin with an I, not a Y. I went with that because when people look me up for Healing for the Soul Plus, it kept coming back to somebody else. And I'm like, okay, we're gonna fix this problem. Lo and behold, I fixed it just by using my name. Now everything comes back appropriately to Healing for the Soul Plus.
There you go. So let me ask you the
Mhm.
first question. When it comes to trauma, how does trauma show up in people's lives?
It can show up as many different ways. Most people would think that money, for example, has nothing to do with it, but it will show up as lack of money, or somebody is working so hard to achieve that they're not able to get satisfaction from what they're doing. They're not feeling that fulfillment. And so that's one of the ways, but people generally don't think of money or the lack of money in that way, that it would show that trauma would show through that. Most people think of trauma that it would show up in your relationships. Like, why am I attracting all of these men that are horrible to me? Well, you're attracting them because you saw that growing up and there was something beneficial that you saw in that. And then you're like, well, I got a sibling that attracts the good relationships. Well, that's because they seen what they did not like and they avoided it. It's all depends on the brain and how a person is wired, if they've seen it as a positive or a negative. And so that's where, when we're talking about trauma specifically, it can show up in a multitude of ways. It shows up in relationships, it shows up in your finances, it can show up in all the health problems that a person attracts. Because 95% of our health problems are not actual real, they're in our head. And by in our head, I mean that arthritis, for example, everybody has arthritis. It's a normal part of aging. But some people feel the arthritis, like people that have fibromyalgia. They feel it because they have unresolved trauma. They have not dealt with it. Traditional talk therapy does not work to solve that problem. And the traditional ways is go pop pills, go pop lotions, potions, whatever you want to call them these days. I'm just saying. That's what they have a person do. And you talk about the problem. And of course, that problem expands because it's energy, it expands. So then, when you're using something like hypnosis, guided meditation, guided imagery, trance, whatever you want to call it these days, they all fall under the same categories. What happens is you're getting to the root of that problem in the subconscious mind, because the subconscious mind is the feelings mind. That's the emotional mind. And it acts like a 2-year-old child. That's what the subconscious mind is, basically. And it's not saying that we're not adults, but if you look around at a majority of adults, my children act better than they do. I'm just saying. It's because they were never taught self-control. They were never taught how to handle those emotions. They were taught to drug them up. Doesn't matter if you call it a prescription bottle or the alcohol bottle. It doesn't matter what you call it. They're taught to put a band-aid on those emotions, especially men, which really ticks me off because men have emotions. And a lot of women, I'm not sorry, but a lot of women need to get there's a reason why a lot of men are not attracted to a lot of the women out there. Because if you notice, a majority of women don't got their head on straight. They don't understand what they want. They treat men like garbage because that's what they've seen. That's what society pushes. And then they wonder why they can't attract a good man. It's 100% on the woman. Like, then the same goes for the men. Like, if you want something good out of life, you want a good partner, you have to be that good person. So when we're talking about how does trauma show up, it very much shows up in the relationships. It shows up in your finances. It shows up everywhere around you. The problem is that most people don't take the time to understand themselves. Because once you understand yourself, then you understand, oh my God, I attracted that horrible relationship. Oh my gosh, I attracted the reason why I can't have kids. And then they're like, oh my gosh, I attracted this too. Because we create. That's our gift. That's what we do. So in trauma, I know a lot of people are like, well, I didn't attract someone sexually abusing me. After the first time, you 100% do. And the reason for that is because your subconscious mind, again, is the feelings. And its sole goal is to protect you at any and all costs. It does not care how it has to protect you. It will do it. And the goal of the subconscious mind is to keep you alive and protect you. That's all it is. So it's going to keep you away from things that are safe, like a good relationship. If you've gone through trauma like I have, I realized, you know what? After the first time, my brain was doing exactly what it was meant to do. It was meant to keep me safe from experiencing more sexual abuse and more other traumas. Well, it did its job by focusing on that issue. It attracted it to me. So it kept repeating and kept happening. Then the moment I started realizing this with hypnosis, because traditional talk therapy 16 years didn't work, didn't do anything for me, and neither did the medications, what I realized once I became a hypnotherapist, diving more into it, and I'm like, oh, the subconscious mind was just trying to protect me from all the trauma. It wasn't trying to bring it to me. It was literally after the first time, it says, okay, now we know exactly what to expect, what happened. We don't want that experience again. So now I'm going to think about it, which the thinking causes that to happen again, like I said. And the only way you can get rid of it is to think positive. But when you're in that circumstance, it's extremely hard to think positive. I mean, like, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's just, it's really hard to think positive. And I didn't have the skills as a child to say, hey, you know what? I'm going to think positive, happy thoughts. That's not exactly what happens. So being an adult, I'm able to say, you know what? I love myself. I'm glad for what happened because I learned a lot. Like I overcame fibromyalgia. I was diagnosed with that back when I was a garbage term, back when I was 14, 15 years old. And it was called a garbage term back then because doctors just didn't know what it was and all that. And there was only 9 tender points. Well, now there's 18 of them. And I'm so thankful to God that I figured this out with the trauma because now I don't have fibromyalgia anymore. I wouldn't want fibromyalgia, put it that way, with all the kids that I've got. That'd be horrible because my husband remembers the days that he couldn't even touch my arms because the pain was so bad. And I took the medication. I'd seen the talk therapist. That didn't work. But what worked is the second I got to the root of the problem, which was dealing with it subconsciously in hypnosis. Because what hypnosis does is it removes you from the problem that you created. And once you remove the problem from the problem, then the problem can be fixed because your subconscious mind knows how to fix it on its own. You just give it a new belief, a new set of patterns, and then it'll go out and do whatever you want it to do. So I don't know if that answered your question. I know there's quite a bit in that, but trauma very much does show up in the body, shows up in relationships, it shows up everywhere, basically, until you fix it.
That's what, and you did answer. That's what I wanted to get to because I know there's a number of people that unfortunately will ignore the signs of the trauma. So, for example, the body will tell you things well in advance in a lot of cases, and some people ignore it because let's say they've drowned themselves in work or they've surrounded themselves by negativity so they can't see what is going on because everything around them is in chaos, so they can't see the chaos of their body. Or worse yet, they put themselves in difficult relationship after difficult relationship, and the chaotic nature of those relationships, friendships or romantic, becomes their baseline. So hey, I have drama today, Robin. I have drama yesterday. Do you know why? Because drama is normal to me. I don't know what it's
Mhm.
like to be healthy. What do you then think are some of the obstacles that people face when it comes to identifying the type of trauma in their life and how they can address it?
For me, what I have seen personally in the clients that I've treated and then also myself as well in this mix is that they have trouble recognizing that they have to take ownership and responsibility that they've caused it. That's the biggest thing is that they have to realize that they've caused this. They have to look at themselves in the mirror. I'm not saying that it's easy. But what I am saying is that when you have the ability to look at yourself in the mirror and take ownership, it starts to change the way you look at yourself, the way you look at things around you. And most people aren't willing to do that type of work. Like I did it years before I found out anything about the hypnosis. Like I remember yelling at myself in the mirror, like, you're the problem. You're the reason why we've got this going on. Like I remember doing that at Abbott Northwestern Heart Hospital back when I lived in Minnesota. I remember doing that. And I look back now at the moments like that. And I think I did not know that I was doing mirror work. I just knew that the problem was within me. And I think that's where a lot of people don't identify that they are the problem. They've caused these issues and breaking free from it. You're not going to be able to do it with medication. I don't care what the prescription bottle is. Like I said, if it's alcohol, drugs, one's from the doctors, they do the exact same thing. It's all a band-aid, nothing more, nothing less. And then when you're talking about the trauma for identifying it, it becomes a person part of a person's identity. It really truly does. Like if you notice people with depression, I'm depressed. My doctor said I had depression. Well, great. What are you doing to change that? Are you taking walks? Are you exercising? Are you stopping the energy drinks? Are you changing your diet? No? Well, then I guess you get to keep it because whatever you fight for, you get to keep. Again, the subconscious mind does not care. It just knows keep you alive at any and all costs and to protect you to keep you safe. So when your identity is, I'm worthless, I've been abused, I've got this going on, which I got to be careful when I say that so I don't attract that. But what I'm saying is that when that becomes your identity, then you start to realize, well, I can't break free from this because my doctor said, well, who cares what your doctor said? Last time I checked, your doctor is just another person. They're not you. You have the power. But too many people, when they're in that cycle of victimhood, because that's what it really is, that victim mentality that sits there and says, I can't break free. Well, this is my identity. I'm depressed. I've been abused. I've had this happen. I've had that problem. Oh, you don't understand. No, I 100% understand. The human mind has not changed over 2000 years. Technology has grown faster than us humans have. Why and how we do what we do is still set up the exact same thing. It's the pain and pleasure response in the brain. That's why addictions exist. It's the exact same thing. So when you're in this identity of depression, like I said, for example, okay, now I'm this identity of I have depression. Well, what do depressed people do? Their shoulders are in. They look down. They move slow. They talk slow. They don't think of anything happy or positive because I've got depression. I'm on these medications and they're helping me. But now if you ask what would a happy person be like? Well, a happy person, their shoulders are back, they're confident. They start to take ownership of the room. They own their problems. They realize that they are the problems, that they can create whatever they want to create. They don't have to stay stuck. They don't need the medications. They don't need to be talking about the problem that got them there. They realize, hey, there's another solution out there. And that's exactly what I started doing in all of my stuff. When I started having my shift, before I created Healing for the Soul, I've gone through the worst trauma imaginable to the human. And so when I've had other people, I'm like, you guys just don't get it. You don't have that motivating drive. If you really want something bad enough, you have to be willing to die to make it happen. And I have been to that point, not just physically dying, fighting for my life a couple times, but I'm talking you have to be physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, all the things you can think of to be able to break free from that identity. And that identity, believe me, the subconscious mind does not want to change. That's why it's so difficult because, like, when you're coming up against it, the subconscious mind is like, nope, not today. That ain't gonna happen. And then you start to get like the third session for hypnosis. Everybody experiences this. What happens is the subconscious mind's like, but if I let go of that belief that I'm depressed and I let go of that identity of that, now I have to look at myself taking ownership for that. Now I have to take responsibility for my actions. And then now who's going to take care of me? Because there's this thing called secondary gain. Because some people do it to keep a person in the relationship with them. The alcoholics do this, and people know that it's, oh, that they stay with the person, oh, I'm going to change, and then they don't change. I'm going to change, and then they don't change. And the reason why I was saying for the alcoholics, it's not necessarily them, but it's the one that society recognizes the most. Why can't the alcoholic just quit drinking? The reason why they can't just quit drinking is because they've got it in their subconscious mind. And again, if insurance would actually cover stuff like hypnosis, the medical system would no longer need to exist. But then the problem is that people would actually have to do the work. And most people, they don't want to do the work. They just want the band-aid. Give me a medication, give me everything else, but I actually having to look at myself. Sorry, that
Do
was
you then
long-winded
think,
answer.
no, I like that because there's so many details in there. And the reason why I liked it is because you not only identified a number of things that is causing people to remain in the situation that they're staying in and struggle, but you also highlighted why some of them can't get out of it. And one of the things that you mentioned, which a lot of people will admit to, is that it's comfortable being the victim. It
Mm-hmm.
is easier to blame than it is to change. I always tell someone that you have two choices in life when it comes to most things. You can complain or you can change. Complain is easy. Is easy. It's old leather. It's a shirt in. It's a sweater in the closet from grandma, right? That's
Yep.
what complaining is, right? To change is itchy church pants, right?
Yes.
It's going to cause you some grief. It's going to make you uncomfortable in the beginning, but you get used to it, and then you begin to adapt. And when you highlighted that point, it made me think of so many people that have come along in my life, and especially over the last few years since I've done my work. And I asked them the question that I've asked myself when I had to make the change way back in my 20s, but I've refined it in my 30s now, is that what are you going to do about it? Right? I don't like my
Mm-hmm.
job. What are you going to do about it? I don't like my marriage. What are you going to do about it? I don't love my children, I think. What are you going to do about it? Because at least that way it's on that person. I remember one person told me straight up, F you, terrain. I was like, what are you going to do about it? Right? Because you can
Yep.
100% control what you're doing, but you can't control the actions of other people. But
Nope.
if a person, place, or thing is causing you trauma, stress, or grief, you have a choice to either continue to be around it, have it around you, or you can change it. Why do you then think, Robin, so many people rather remain the same and complain rather than change their situation, their environment, or the people around them?
Well, it's the subconscious mind. That's what it comes down to. Because anytime you're going to make a change, especially within that subconscious mind, it doesn't want to change. It just doesn't want to. The subconscious mind is programmed to run away from it. So in the subconscious mind, when a person's going to make a change, it literally is painful to the brain. So it's going to run from it. So an example of this would be like sugar. What it happens is the brain has to burn insulin. It's burning the sugar is what it's doing because it's making a change. It's kind of like when you go to the gym for the very first time, you can't lift. I'm not sorry, but if you have not lifted weights, you haven't done anything. It would be stupid to expect yourself to lift up a 25-pound dumbbell or whatever size dumbbell that they've got these days. I'm sure they've changed over the years, but it'd be really stupid to think that you could go do like a 25-pound dumbbell or bench press 100 pounds if you've never done it before. So the subconscious mind is gonna be like, I'm not gonna do that. Maybe I can do like a half a pound or like a pound. I can do that. And then after like the first 10 times of lifting the 1 pound, you're like, oh, this is a lot of work. The subconscious mind's the exact same way. I'm lifting this 1 pound dumbbell repeatedly. Well, now the brain's like, okay, I'm used to this. I'm comfortable with this. I can do this. But when you're introducing something new right away that happens immediately, the subconscious mind is going to throw up the blocks like, hey, I can't lift. You know that you can't lift the 25-pound dumbbell or do the bench press at 100 pounds. Like, you know that. But some people think that when they want to make a change, that it's got to be from zero, I've never lifted weights, to all of a sudden I can do a 100-pound bench press. It does not work that way because the brain's like, that's going to be pain. And so it's going to run away from it. But if you do it slow, incremental, the brain doesn't catch it. That's why COVID was a great example. I'm like, I'm bringing it up because it's like it was a huge example of all of a sudden everything that everybody had thought around the world basically was like, oh, now something's dangerous. Something that's invisible is going to kill us all. No, no. What the problem was is that the reason for the mass hysteria and everything that happened was that it was another change, but it was instant. It was not slow. If they had done it slow, nobody would have ever noticed. Nobody would have had the mass hysteria. Nobody would have done any of that. It's like the inflation as an example. Inflation's been happening for over 40 years. I'm not sorry. But what they did was move everything up slowly so that nobody caught it. Because back in the 80s, when I was born, things were a lot cheaper. They didn't have all of the medications and all the stuff that they treat people with today for a reason. It's not just because the medication's advanced and all this other stuff like they try to tell people. It's literally because over time, they were able to get more people to believe the story. Over time, they slowly moved everything up in price. They slowly did everything so nobody ever caught it. The subconscious mind doesn't catch anything if it's done slow. That's why people that are in trauma, for example, it's slow. And so the brain can't catch it as easily. So when we go back to the subconscious mind and how it runs from pain or pleasure, if it's done slow over time, the brain can't tell the difference between which one we're doing. That's why I use the example of the weightlifting. If you go expect yourself to do 100-pound weights and you've never done it before, your course would be an idiot to try to that one. I'm just saying, because it would be immediate pain would be the first thing that would come up. But now if you built it slow, did it over time, 100 pounds is easy. I don't know if
You
that
mentioned
helps like answer that.
it does, it does. You mentioned the subconscious mind. Is there a way for someone to tap into that or see what's there or use it for their benefit when it comes to handling trauma in the way that you described?
On their own, no, not as easily, no. It's almost impossible because I would even know that from doing my own things on myself even. It's that's why a lot of people like to go to the talk therapy because they think that they're talking through the problem that exists and they're really not. What they're doing is they're talking about it, which is re-traumatizing the person. And there's plenty of studies that show that when you're talking about something that was traumatic, it creates more of it. And then that person continues to live in that moment. That's where we get PTSD from. that post-traumatic stress disorder is literally because the brain is ruminating on it so much that whatever happened at that traumatic moment, it just brings the brain right back to it. So then you're like, oh, now I'm back in this moment. I can't fight it. I can't do anything because you don't have the skills and the tools to stop it. So, like when it comes to the subconscious mind, when you use something like hypnosis, like I said, you're removing yourself from the problem, where we don't even talk about the problem because I don't even want to hear your problem because that's not the problem. The problem is it's your subconscious mind. You need a different program. So, like when you go to talk therapist, they're like, well, what's your problem? How's it going? Okay, well, let's do some. I'm trying to remember one of the things that they use, like triggers, like people call it their triggers. Okay, well, if you're avoiding your triggers, because that's what talk therapists want people to do, um, one, you're never going to grow up, just saying. Two, if you can't move past those things, that the therapist is not doing you any benefit at all whatsoever. Because like what I do in hypnosis is I take somebody, say they've got a person in the office or online in this case. So what I'm going to know, what I want to know is how would you rather feel? Okay. So you've got depression. You've been dealing with a narcissistic parent as an example. Well, how would you rather feel instead? In the moment I've asked anybody, how would they rather feel instead? It's dead silence every single time because nobody's ever asked them that. How would you rather feel? And they don't know because nobody's asked them that. And it's really sad because it's like if you were to ask somebody, okay, I'm complaining about my problem, like we had said earlier about people that are complaining. Well, how would you rather feel? If you hate your job, okay, well, what are you going to do about it? Like you said, but take that one step further of, okay, well, what kind of job would you like? If you don't want to be abused anymore, can you imagine what that would feel like? Most people that have that as their identity, that's been traumatized so much, they would not know what they would want in a healthy relationship, so they'll never be able to attract it. But when you use something like hypnosis, you can attract the relationship you do want. Most people start with something like a vision board as an example. But even when we're dealing with a vision board, because we all take in information differently, some people like, oh, they want to lose weight. Well, when you put that on the vision board, what happens when you lose your keys?
You don't have anywhere to go.
Well, that and what do you got to do?
Yeah, you got to look for your keys.
Yeah. So what does the subconscious mind say? Now I got to go look for that weight that I just lost. That's why weight loss is a $1 trillion industry because people don't want to deal with it subconsciously. So when you lose something, the brain is trained automatically, autopilot behavior, like I said with the hypnosis, to go out and look for it. So when you're out of that relationship, I'm looking for the identity of depression. That's why you're able to know who has depression. It's not that hard. They walk slow, their shoulders are in, their head's usually looking down, they're depressed, they hate everything in life, and that's their identity. And you're able to tell them easily from the next person who is confident, who has worked on themselves, who has done the work. Because the person who's done the work does not act like a depressed person. That's why you're able to tell the two differences. So if you wanted to do it on your own without using hypnosis, one, good luck. I'm just telling you the straight out truth. The other is like what they say in NLP, which is neuro linguistic programming, is model the person you want to become. So if you want to be a person that's not depressed, you have to know what you want. If you don't know what you want, your brain can't follow that command. And we all learn differently, like I said. So, for example, me, I'm a phys. And what that means for my training with the hypnosis is that I'm a physical. So for me, I have a lot of words to say. If it was just like one simple thing I could say, that would be the emos, the emotionals that can do that. They're straight, short, quick to the point. On how they would talk to somebody like me as a phys. So if they tell me go jump off a bridge, well, I'd go do it. I'm not saying that's necessarily the case, but I'm trying to give it a quick example of it. And so, like when it comes to this trauma deal, That's what a lot of it is that the subconscious mind, okay, I've taken this information in. I know that if I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. So then when I'm giving myself back a suggestion using a vision board or affirmations, I have to know how I take that information in. So if I put lose weight on my vision board, I'm going to track that back. But now that weight that I've lost back, that's why people like the 10 pounds is the hardest. No, it's not. That's just in your head. That's a program that's running. 10 pounds isn't any harder than losing 30 pounds. That's the exact same thing. But people make it hard because they want to believe, which is their belief system. That's in the NLP, like I said. And so they make it hard on themselves. So when we go back to this example, like I said, for about like the NLP to model somebody, you'd have to model what you want. So if you're getting out of the depression anxiety or the depression example, well, you're going to want to find people who are not depressed and go follow them. But first, you have to know how you'd rather feel instead. And if you don't know how to answer that, you don't know what that would look like, you don't know what it would taste like, what it smell like, what you could touch. If you don't know the experience of having what it would feel like to never have depression, your brain's like, I don't have a model for this. Like, how can I do that? I don't know how. And if you don't know those simple little questions, the brain can't help you. The subconscious mind can't help you figure out what that is. And so that's a lot of the problem that people have is that they simply just don't know what they even want. That's why Napoleon Hill calls them drifters. Like 95% of the world. That's why 95% of the world, they don't have money. They don't got the relationships that they want. They don't got the kids that they want. They don't got the life that they want. They attract all these horrible things because they're drifters. They just simply don't know what they want. Because as soon as you tell the subconscious mind, that's what the hypnosis does. As soon as you tell the subconscious mind, I want a healthy relationship. I want 11 kids. I want to be able to have $1 million a year. I want to be able to have all this. The subconscious mind will give it to you. But you have to have the belief and the feeling of the experience of it. And you're not going to get that through books. You're not going to get that through other things. The only way is to work towards it. Because law of attraction, it's law of attraction, a law of action. That's what people forget. You have to take action. You can't just look at a vision board and look like some people do. I looked at my vision board today. Great, but you didn't do anything to actually get there. You had to put in the work. Again, most people don't want to do that. So then they get to fight for what they don't want.
What do you then think, Robin, is the disconnect between people acknowledging that it's one thing to have a thought or vision of something, but you need the action and behaviors as well? What do you think is causing the disconnect between the two, action and thoughts?
Simple, quick answer is they don't know what they know that they're supposed to do the steps. It's just that bridging that knowing and doing gap. And that's really what hypnosis does, is it bridges that knowing and doing gap. Because you already know what to you got to do to lose weight. You don't need GPL-1 and all these other fancy lotions, potions, and whatever else they come up with next. You already know you have to exercise. So you already know that. You already know you don't want to have the depression, the anxiety, the traumas. You already know that. But what separates that is the doing. That's all it is the doing. And the only way to get that action, because it's comfort, they don't want to change. Again, the mind does not want to change. So the subconscious mind is going to label that new thing as pain. I don't want to do it. So it's going to run away from it. So the only way to get the brain to run towards something new, like I said, is to use the hypnosis NLP and things like that I'm trained in. And the reason why I say that is because that's the only way you're going to make that change, because the mind and your entire cells, every single, like even your hair cells, 100% need to believe that what you want is achievable. And if you've never experienced it, it's labeled as pain in the brain. It's a long, um, short answer of why people don't do things. It's not that they don't got the ability, it's that they don't have the action, they don't get the motivation.
I remember recently I did a couple of training when it came to that, and there was this thing that came up in the training that I did, and it said that is it a skill, will, or knowledge issue? And then I applied that with a few people who are no longer in my life because the friendships has ended. And in every single situation, when it came to them trying to handle what is an obstacle, the knowledge wasn't lacking. They knew it was an issue. They knew what they're doing was wrong. They just knew, right? And
Mm-hmm.
then I asked myself, okay, is it a skill? Do they have the tools to overcome it? Some did and some didn't. But one thing that was consistent across the board was the will. They didn't want to do it, right? And
Mm-hmm.
when they came face to face with that, every excuse in the book they can come up with to justify their lack of will to doing it. So for example, one of them would say that, "Oh, I know my issues are." Okay. So if you know what the issues are and they're all coming from you, that means you're intentionally not doing anything about it. So every time that you mention it, you're just sympathy farming, right? Because you want attention. No, that's not the case. I was like, it is because every single person that has stopped giving you that attention, what have you done? You've gotten rid of them, right? A new audience, like a new victim, graduates every year, like college students, right? There's always
Yep.
going to be a new generation of them, right? So the reason why I
And
mentioned this is because from a will standpoint, if you're someone, because you mentioned you're in a relationship, I'm in a relationship, if you're someone who's in a relationship, whether it's romantic or friendship, and you identify someone in your circle or someone in your life that has no intention of correcting their life course, what kind of advice would you give to that person to handle it?
could give the advice that I told my husband. I've had people ask me that a couple times. They're like, "How did you get your husband to quit his job?" It'll be 3 years ago this August. Like, how did you get him to do that and get in your dream and want to help you build this business? I says, "Well, it was easy. I just told him, I says, you're either on my ship or you're off this ship. We're not doing this." I says, "I know exactly what I want. I know I can take us to where we want to go. Just get out of my way." And for him in that moment, it's not like, oh, he needs to move and all of that. No, 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 no. What it is I have the skills more than he does to take us to the next place. I'm willing to change. I'm willing to do whatever it takes, like I said, including death, to get to where I want to go because I know the power of the mind. I know I have the ability to do anything because that was put in us when we were born. Like from the moment of conception, we are given every single tool that we will ever need for our entire life. That's the reason why that's saying when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. There's a reason for that. And so when it comes to my husband and I, for this, and you're talking about like for the relationships, when somebody does not want to change, society will tell you divorce, leave the relationship, get out of it. It's unhealthy. Everything else except look at yourself in the mirror. That's why I get irritated with so many women out there. And I'm not sorry, but I'm raising six boys and one girl. Um, and it's soon to be seven boys and one girl. So for me as a mom, I'm like, no, 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 no. I'm already training my boys to one, open up doors for them, for open up the doors for women and for children, because that's what a man is supposed to do. A man is supposed to protect his family, provide for his family. And women, they're like, oh, blah, blah, blah. I don't listen to you. There's a reason why you're in the bad relationships. Respect is a two-way street. It's never been a one-way. So for me with my husband, when I told him, like, get out of my way, it's like, I need your help. And I told him that. It's like, I need your help. We're either doing this together because I know we can get there. You've got to trust me that we can do this. And it has worked out in our favor, 100%. Because like I said, he hasn't had to work for 3 years coming up because we made this decision. We're doing this together. We made this decision that we want to have this happen. we've gone through a lot more bad than most people will ever go through in a relationship, by the way. But even at that, we kept going. Like there's days that I want to quit, and he's my cliff pusher. That's the easiest way to explain about him because there's days I'm like, I just want to be done. I can't do this anymore. You don't know how hard this is. A couple days ago, that was our situation. And he's like, but I know you can do this. You've done this. I know you can. Get out of your damn little pity party, like he tells me. And it's like, yeah, you're right. Because he's helping me. Most women may see that like as a threat. And I'm like, no, that's what a man is supposed to do. They're supposed to help. They're supposed to be the head of the household for a reason. And it has nothing to do with finances. It has everything to do with that is the way that it's been designed from the very beginning. And that's why I get irritated, like I said, with a lot of women out there because it's like, you don't realize you're putting out men are bad, all this stuff. I used to be a sexist. Then my husband comes along. He showed me that not all men are bad. And I'm so thankful that he did because I would not want to raise my boys the way I used to be. So I'm very thankful. But I also had to get out of my own way. And that's why when I told him, just get out of my way, it's literally giving myself that message back. Get out of my own way. And a lot of people are stuck in their own way.
Yeah, there's so many people out there that they would have to, instead of looking to move others out of their way, they didn't move themselves out of the way of not only themselves, but out of the way of other people. And it's interesting that you mentioned relationships because there's like this online joke that the chronically single women, if they have children, they raise the very men that they don't like. Right? Very like
They do.
pushover, very weak. And right. And then when you reverse that, like the chronically single men, right? They create the very woman that they would say to avoid. Like there's so many this makes me laugh. There's so many men who, let's say online, they're like, okay, we don't date women under this age, we don't date single mothers, we don't date any of this stuff, right? And then you find out they will get with someone, won't marry them, right? Have a child with them, therefore making them a single mother, right? And not
Yep.
realizing that they're creating a woman that they're saying for you not to date, but they're with them and they'll spend all this money, all this time. And it's like, wait a minute, you're taking money from men saying that don't do this, but yet you just created the exact scenario from scratch, right?
Yep.
To avoid. And I find it funny because they're in their own way, just like how the women out there who are complaining, I am the table, they're in their own way. And one thing that I came to the realization, and I was actually having a conversation with myself today about this, is that listening to these people who are, it's unfortunate that because they're so loud, even though they're a minority, they're so loud about it. There's people who's going to gravitate because it goes viral, it gets views, it gets likes. And yet, no one that I've seen, maybe you've seen us ask you, no one has asked the question of these people, if your advice is so good, why isn't it working for you? What are your thoughts?
Oh, I've got a lot of thoughts on a lot of different things out there. I have the DSM-5 and I cannot give diagnoses as a hypnotherapist. That's not my role because I don't take insurance. That's all the DSM-5 is about. Because if you've ever looked at one, everybody on the planet would fit somewhere in there. It's just an insurance tool to get money. Um, that's that's the reality of it. So there's a personality disorder called histrionic personality disorder. That's where you see the women crying into the things on the phone and they plan all that. Nobody in their right mind wants to share any of that stuff. They do it for attention. And that's part of that histrionic personality disorder is what they're doing is they're doing it for attention because they did not get the attention from their parents. That's the sole reason why people are being so loud. It's like my hypnotherapist said, the squeaky grease gets the wheel, or the squeaky wheel gets the grease, is solely because they're the loudest. They're crying. Like I said, my kids act better than most of these adults out there for a good reason because I'm not training my kids to be like everybody else because I certainly don't want them to be. But also in this, my kids, they're seeing my behaviors. They're seeing how I'm acting. And like one of my kids, they didn't realize that there's bad mommies and daddies out there. I've told them that. I says, there's mommies and daddies that spank their kids and do all this stuff to their kids. They didn't believe me. Then they saw mama in the store at the grocery store. The kid wasn't doing anything wrong, like obnoxious, none of that. He was just goofing off in a little bit, but nothing bad. Anyways, this mother had zero self-control. And she right out said, I'm going to spank you if you don't knock your stuff off. My son had heard that and he's like, that's a mean mommy. And I'm like, I told you they exist. And the reason why I'm telling you that story is because it's all learned behavior. So when people are doing that stuff on social media for the attention, for the views, it's simply because their parents did not give them the attention that they needed when they were a kid. Because all of us adults, unless you do the work like what I've done, and it sounds like you've done some of the work too. I don't know how much that you've done, but I know for myself I can speak to when you do the work subconsciously, you start to look at other adults and you're like, oh my God, I am so glad I'm not acting like a little child. Because from the time of conception to 8 years old, that's what these adults in little kid bodies or little kid minds are out there doing. So they're between conception and 8 years old, throwing their temper tantrum, throwing their little crying me videos. It just blows my mind that so-called adults want to do that behavior. But what they're doing is they're teaching the next generation the entitlement. They're teaching the next generation, I don't have to work for stuff. They're teaching the next generation no self-control. That's why like STDs have gone up. That's why traumas have gone up. That's why a lot of this stuff goes up because they refuse to do the work. Oh, I've been to a talk therapist. I've done medication. It's not getting better. Congratulations. What you've done is put a great big band-aid on your problems that you've done absolutely nothing about to fix. That's all they've done. And so when people are out there doing the stuff like you mentioned, like the crying on the phone, it's solely because they didn't get the attention. If their parents had gave them any attention, been with their child, they would not be acting that way. So like my kids, they don't have the tablets, they don't have the computers, they don't need that stuff. But so many parents quick to give them these addictions so that way, oh, and they're not being hurt by the phone. Really? You're giving your kids crack cocaine. They've proven that. Again, it runs back to the subconscious mind. Addiction is addiction. My addiction is self-help. At least I got a good one. I'm just saying. Because I love self-help. I love working on myself because the more I've known myself, the better I am. Like I know for a fact, don't ask me to do any work on Monday or Saturday. Last 6 years, I've tried. I just can't do it for the life of me. Monday and Saturday are not my days. My brain's like, shut off. But if you get me on Sunday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, and Friday, I'm good. I can get a lot of stuff done in 4 hours. A lot of stuff done. But that's because I know myself. And these people online, that's why they're doing it. Like I said, is for the attention. They're not doing it for anything else. The attention and the views, and that's a dopamine hit. So that's again pleasure response to the brain. Now it's painful if somebody ghosts them. It's painful when they don't get the next like, they don't get the next view because it's the dopamine hits, and the dopamine hits is absolutely the addiction in the brain of pleasure. So they're going to run from anything that doesn't give them pleasure. That's why I said it doesn't matter what the addiction is called, but people label them as bad. And I don't understand why they need to label it as a bad addiction, like alcoholics. An alcoholic and a phone screen addict, they're the exact same thing. That's why I said a couple times now, it doesn't matter what you call the bottle, the prescription bottle, the alcohol bottle, the drugs. It doesn't matter what you call it. The brain is still going to run towards what it finds pleasurable. And then when you want to go make that change, the brain's like, we're not doing this. That's why a lot of people quit doing the hypnosis because they realize, oh, one, I'm actually changing. Two, my brain is actually having to move insulin. Like I don't want to do this work. You think I want to be this new person? What are people going to think of me? People online. What are people going to think of me if I all of a sudden I stop crying on the phone? What are people going to think of me if I'm actually in a good relationship and I've got the man of my dreams? What are people going to think of me? I can't have that because that's a new identity, like we've discussed earlier. And so that's that secondary gain that I had mentioned. That's why people do it. There's a secondary gain. We all have them as to why we don't want to do something. So you gave the example that you had said about a couple of the friends that you've had for like the relation or the friendships that you've had that you've lost. It's not that they didn't have the skills or the knowledge. Some of them didn't have the skills necessarily, like you said, but it's the secondary gain. That's where that excuse came in that you had mentioned. That's the excuses that people give why they can't do something. That's a secondary gain. And deep down subconsciously, the secondary gain is different for everybody.
So many people do so many things for attention and are either in denial about it or they straight out lie to themselves and to others. I'll give you an example. I remember I shared with someone saying that, anytime you post something on social media publicly, you're doing it for attention. The person's like, no, I don't. I was like, okay, let me break it down for you. The reason why you posted it is to get views and likes, which is a source of attention. Now, if you want to combat that and say that you don't want to do it for attention, this is what you do. You put a post, and the only person that can see it is you. Oh, well, calm down. Right? They start to stutter because now their brain is starting to accept what I'm saying, but in their body, they're like, I can't accept it, right? So you can literally see the conflict in their face, right? And I said, that's fine, but there's a hierarchy when it comes to resolving your problems. And I said that first and foremost, and you can talk to anybody about this, you're supposed to soothe yourself. If you can't soothe yourself, you go to someone who has experience and knowledge to do it, and or your partner, right? And the
Yep,
third and very distant third is your friends.
yep,
And then a distant fourth from that, if all hell breaks loose, maybe you can go online or acquaintance, right? To find like a therapist, coach, whomever, right?
yep,
I share this because there's some people out there, they skip the first two steps immediately to their friends, or they skip the first three immediately online, right? And it comes to a point where you have to ask yourself, because I know I've asked this of people, do you really want help or do you want the attention of seeking help? What are your thoughts, Robin?
the second one that you just said. It's people want the attention of saying I want help because I see this all the time when it comes to the clients that I've had. Not all of them, it's a good majority of them. I want the help, but I don't want the help. I just want somebody to pay attention to me, is what it is. And that's the exact same things that people, when they want to commit suicide, they do the exact same thing. I want the attention. I want the emotional suffering that I'm going through to stop. They don't want to end their life. They really truly don't. They may say that they do. They may get into that mood. I've been there. I've done that myself, like for having those thoughts. But really, what it boils down to is I just wanted somebody to help me figure out how to move past the emotional issue that I'm dealing with. And traditional medication, traditional talk ways is pop the pills, go talk about it, go distract yourself from it. This stuff doesn't work for a good reason because you're not addressing the emotional reason why that person is in that suffering. You have to address the emotional reason. And again, that's all in the subconscious mind. It's not outside of ourselves. It's 100% within. And that's why I'm like the healing for the soul is literally it's healing within because you can't get it anywhere else. And like you said about like for the relationships when they skip the first two, well, that's why you end up, oh, I cheated. I had this affair with somebody because you're talking to somebody else about your problems instead of your spouse. You created that. It didn't intentionally happen. Yeah, it did. You were very much intentional talking to somebody else about your problems. They also call it triangulation. but you're talking to somebody else about your problems that you should have been addressing with your spouse. You should have been addressing with the person that you're in the relationship with, because the second you address them and you leave everybody else out of the picture, your life begins to change. That's like I did with my husband. Him and I, we don't get anybody else involved when we do have arguments, if and when we ever do. It's like nobody else needs to know. It's a him and I deal, and usually it's a you and you deal, so it's usually me. I'm just saying, I call it what it is. But it's like he knows, hey, you're having this issue. What's going on? And then we're able to talk about it. That's why I'm like, I don't need anybody else to talk about it. Because when you talk to the person, you're safe with that person, you're able to talk with them. Nobody else, guess what, can get into our relationship. I'm not going to go cheat on him, and he's not going to go cheat on me. If somebody else wants him, good luck. That's all I can say. Like, I have that much confidence in the relationship that it's like we talk to each other. I'm not going to involve somebody else. Because when people are doing that, oh, I just needed somebody to talk to. Now they're in love with somebody else. If you had stopped and looked at yourself honestly in the mirror, that was intentional. That cheating was intentional. You can't tell me that it wasn't intentional. You can't tell me that you just magically happen to be in bed with somebody else. That doesn't happen. It's 100% all intentional. And just like what you had said about, like, for all the single moms out there and all the single dads, they attract the very thing they don't want. And they put it into that fresh new baby that has zero clue because they learn from the parents. The parents are the ones that are responsible for why we've got the kids today's world that's got the problems. The parents, if you look at them, a good majority of them do not have self-control. They don't have the ability to say, you know what, I should get married before I do anything with anybody else. I'm just saying, they don't have that self-control. They don't have the self-control to sit there and go get a job, keep the job. And yes, I know some days it's like, why am I working with these people? But suck it up and deal with it. That's part of being human, because when you're dealing with it, and like I said, suck it up and deal with it. Why I say that is because you're building resilience. You're building your character. There's things that I have been through in my life. I guarantee that people have been like, I'm not going to be in that relationship. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do that. And I'll be like, you know what, though? That's the reason why I have the experience and skills unlike anybody else. That's actually why sometimes I've struggled within the business, is because it's like I'm so experienced in so many different areas that it does get difficult, because I can help in all these different areas. I can help with trauma. I can help with infertility. I can help with pregnancy. I can help with relationship problems. That's where it gets difficult. But trying to niche all that down, it's like being able to it's like that relationship, like for the example, is if I'm going talking to everybody else about the problem instead of that one person, which again, we are our own problems. That's the reason why I raised my hand. I'm like, I admit it, because I have the ability to do that. But when you're taking, you really ask yourself those questions. What do I want? Why do I want it? What will I get out of that? And when you start thinking about that, even applying it to the relationship with the spouse, you're going to find out you're not going to want to cheat because you're talking with that other person. And a lot of people I've noticed that are divorced people, single people are like the best people to get advice of what to never do. That's what they're good at. That's what I'm just saying. Like, honestly, like if you look at people online, like all the single moms and all the single dads, no, I'm not talking about their spouse dies. I'm not talking about those. That's something different. But I'm talking about these other women and these other men and all these other people out there. What I'm getting at is they're really great for examples of what never to do. Like I said, for the relationship, you skip the first two steps, like you mentioned. You're going to talk to your friends about it. Your friends are going to tell you, well, you shouldn't be with that person anyway. They did this to you. They did that to you. Really? Were you there when we got into that argument? Do you realize that there's two sides to every story? Not most people don't stop to think about that there are two sides to every story. Most people also don't stop to think that respect is a two-way street. And a lot of people won't say anything to their spouse. But it's like with me and my husband, there's a reason why we're so successful at what we do. It's Because we take and we put God first in our relationship. I'm just saying. Number two, reason why we are so successful at what we do is because he knows everything. I've told him my past. I know his past. And most people in relationships, they're like, oh, you don't tell your spouse this. You don't tell your person that you're with this or that. You don't tell them everything. And that's exactly why you've got the problems. Because you're learning from a person who's been divorced. You've learned from a person that's been single. You've learned from them and you've gone and you've repeated what they've done. Smart people are like, I don't want that problem, so I'm not going to do that. That's why I'm like, I tell my spouse everything because divorced people, there's a reason why they're divorced. They did not tell the other person everything. And I do tell him everything, except for what I'm dealing with clients. That's completely different. But outside of that, that's all intentional. They create the cheating, they create these things, and then they want to play victim. That's what it comes down to it.
Yeah, it goes back to that saying, right? Those who don't learn from the past are doomed to repeat it because they won't even address it. They're fearful of it. And the question should be asked, they should ask themselves that if you can't speak about your past, why is it your past? Right? Like, what is it that you've
Yeah.
done that you can't come to terms with to even express, right? Because if you're willing to ignore it and hide from it, then that person should be able to judge you for it because you're not even able to own it, right? Like everyone has done bad things. There's levels to it, right? Some have committed crimes, some have stolen a
Yep.
chocolate bar, some have just swore, right? Different levels to it, right? But if you've accepted, come to terms with it, it's water on the bridge, as they would say, right? So, Robin, I guess as we close, I'm going to give you three wishes Aladdin's genie lamp, okay? What are three things you wish people knew about the benefits of addressing their past and why?
This is going to make me think a little bit. The three benefits of addressing their past, the first thing I can think of is that there is no benefit to addressing it because you can't undo it. And that's why even talking about it, it doesn't help you. It helps your spouse. It helps the person you're in a relationship with to know your past because they're with you all the time. That's the only benefit from telling your spouse and the person that you're with is so that they can help you. And if they know that something bothers you or triggers you, that only enhances the relationship. It doesn't subtract from it at all whatsoever. Like there's certain things my husband he can't have, and same with me. And guess what? Because we both know each other's triggers, the stupid person would sit there and go purposely do it when they're mad at them. Just saying that's what the stupid person would do. In our case, when we're mad, he has learned stay away from me. When I'm mad, just leave me alone. And the reason why I do that is because when I was a kid, I saw stuff that I'm like, I don't want to deal with that. So being the smart person that I am, leave me alone. I'm walking away from it because I need time to think. And so that's the only benefit to your partner, your spouse, knowing your past is for them to understand you better in the relationship so they can help you. That's what being in a marriage and partnership, all that is supposed to be, is you're supposed to help the other person. You care enough about the other person, you are supposed to help them, not yourself first. I mean, like there's the whole oxygen mask. I get that concept, but at the same time, that's the reason why you want the other person to know about their past. That's why I told my husband about my past, and I know about his. We can help each other. That's why we are successful. That'd be my first wish for about the past, like I said, is you just don't address it unless you're talking to your partner. They're the only ones that really need to know it. The other wish for people when it comes to their past in dealing with it is to know that the past is there as a reminder of for things for you to work on. And people in your life will come aggravate it and agitate the problem that you never resolved. An example is our kids. When we have kids, oh my gosh, they're wonderful at this. My kids, I did not recognize the pattern until I think it was my daughter, she turned 3. I'm like, I want to divorce my husband at 3. Like, why, when the kids would turn 3 years of age, I wanted to divorce him? He didn't do anything wrong, but that's what I wanted to do. When I realized I worked on the problem, I knew it was 100% me. But my parents divorced when I was 3. So when I worked on that root cause of it, again using hypnosis, then I realized I'm like, oh, so this is what was going on. I was experiencing this when I was 3 years old. I would not know that. I was 3 and I'm like 39 now. Like, how would I seriously know? I wouldn't know. So that was brought up in me through my daughter. And then by the time my next child came after my daughter, I was like, when he hit 3, I'm like, no big deal. Problem's gone. The problem was resolved because I worked on it, so it doesn't bother me anymore. And that's what a lot of people, when they have their child, they think, oh, the child's doing this to tick me off. They're doing this, they're talking back. Like my one son with autism, he's been talking back to me recently. Most people would think that that's all he's doing. No, what he's doing is he's mirroring back the stuff in me that I need to fix. Most people don't take the time to realize that's what their kids are doing. They're mirroring back what they see you doing, and then you don't like it and you get mad about it. It's because that's something in you that you need to work on. So that would be a point where you'd want to work on it from the past. But other than that, that's again, you're learning from the past. You're experiencing it in a healthy way, but it's going to keep getting dished back to you until you work on it. It's the reason why they call it a lesson. You keep taking the lesson repeatedly until you actually work on it. And then the third thing I would say for people when it comes to wishing for the past is that their past doesn't define you. If I let everything in my past define me, I would not be successful. And most people define success as money. I don't. I can't because to me, I am very successful. I got what I wanted out of hypnosis, which was be a better wife and a better mother. If I didn't do anything else with it, guess what? I'm already successful because my past does not define me. And if everything I have done to fix myself, to do everything in my power to do what it is that I can do to the very best of my abilities, I've already won. My past has no control over me. And because of that, my children will never have to suffer through anything that I've ever been through. So that would be my 3 wishes. That's the beauty of if you're doing the work with your past and you're facing it, but it doesn't have to be painful. Talk therapy makes you talk about it and all this other stuff. It's not conducive to your growth. What is focusing on how you'd rather feel. What future do you want? And when it comes to your kids, realizing that they're not your enemy, just like your spouse, they're not your enemy. They're just simply mirroring back everything within you that has not been worked on that you need to work on. And if you don't like it, it's called change it. Simply what it is. Change it. And yes, change is not fun. I'm not saying it's been fun at all whatsoever. But what I will say is the rewards of changing. I look at my life a year ago. I was doing that today, and I've looked at it over the last couple of years. I'm so thankful to God I'm not that person that I was a year ago, that I was 6 months ago. I'm very thankful for that. Not everybody can say that about their lives because not everybody's willing to do the work. And if you're willing to do the work, it is 100% worth it. It doesn't feel like it at the moment, but trust me, it feels so much better being on the other side. It really, truly does. That's all I have to say for the 3 wishes.